Right, Chris, well, we're here today to talk about the fumigation process, which is important to get right if we want phosphine to be both effective and also minimise the risk of resistance building up to a fumigant like this.
Yeah, there's a few steps that we need to remember to allow time for. The first thing, I guess, is most important. Always use our PPE when we're both applying the phosphine and removing the residue.
I suppose if we're thinking about the process itself, one of the things we need to do is make sure that the vessel or the silo we're putting this phosphine into has been pressure tested. We need to make sure it can hold the gas at the appropriate concentration to do the job we want it to do, right?
That's right. Once we've got our gas-tight storage, it's then a matter of calculating the dose, and the label, which we should always refer to, the label directions, tells us 1.5 grams per cubic metre, or the rough rule of thumb is 2 tablets per tonne of wheat storage capacity.
Yeah, okay, so it doesn't matter how much grain is in that silo, we're talking about treating the volume of the silo itself. Chris, what about the application time and the exposure that we give the insects to the fumigant? That varies according to a few different things, doesn't it?
It does. So your application exposure period, regardless of whether you're putting it in a ground level application system or in the headspace of the silo, will either be a 7, 10 or 20 day exposure. That will depend on the grain temperature, the size of the storage, and whether we have active recirculation or not. One of the important things to remember is we need a way to get the phosphine out of the storage once the exposure period is finished. We've got to be able to retrieve that residue.
And the residue can be, it's normally a powder or a dust if it's not in bags, you know, so we need to think about our exposure there. And again, obviously PPE important when we're removing that residue.
Absolutely. The other thing to consider when we're calculating our dose and application, try to get a tin size, either in tablets or blankets or bag chains, that match the size of your storage so that we don't have leftover. We don't want to have part-full tins put back in the shed.
Of course, Chris, ventilation and the withholding periods are an important part of that fumigation process too, aren't they? In accordance with the label? Talk us through that.
We need to make sure that we've actually vented the gas out of the storage at the end of our fumigation period. So always follow the label directions and make sure you're meeting your delivery requirements. The surest way to do that is with a low range phosphine meter or a personal phosphine meter and actually measure the gas concentration that's remaining in that storage before you're out low.
That just gives us that certainty that we're below the level that we need to be. Well, for more information on the fumigation process, go to the Stored Grain website, storedgrain.com.au, or give one of the team a call on 1800 Weevil, that's 1800 933 845.